If you've been dreaming of starting a podcast, but fear is holding you back, then this is the episode for you. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer, your host of Podcast Power. Thank you so much for tuning in. If at the end of this episode you decide you want some help launching your podcast, please shoot me an email, jen@jenknoedl.com. So today's topic is, I like to have a podcast, but I'm scared. So now what? And I just want to start things off by saying, totally normal. Like there couldn't be anything more normal, right? You are definitely not alone. Every single podcaster, I am quite certain of it, has felt all of these fears. I know I certainly have, but you know what? You kind of got to click record anyway. So, I mean, some of those fears, right? They're going to be fear of not being good enough. And that is a whole separate ball of wax, right? But we know that, if it's not from God, it's not true. So keep that in mind. You are good enough. God doesn't make junk. You're a very special person with a very special place in the world, with a very special story. The fear of technology or equipment, right? There are kind of a lot of moving parts. I'm not going to lie to you, but everything is figure outable. And I'm sure you've got this. There's the fear of negative feedback or criticism. I would probably say that is the strongest one. But whether you think it's good news or bad news, let's call it good news. The good news is probably in the beginning, not that many people are going to watch or listen. So you have time to warm up. And finally, we come to the fear of wasting time. And, some people might think like, oh, I didn't get a bazillion listeners or whatever. And so it's not, you really have to set up what your goals are ahead of time. And aside from that, just even the process is just like an incredible learning opportunity. It really is. Even if you have someone helping you, you're still learning so much the process of podcasting. Our fears, these things that we're discussing and just every little variation of them, they're really holding us back, right? Fear holds us back in so many different aspects of our lives, relationships, business, right? I don't know, exercise, getting up in the morning, just a lot of things. We are scared of things. We don't always call it fear. Sometimes we call it stress, but it's holding us back. And like I was just saying, I think there's a lot of personal growth opportunities within the process of podcasting. It's very rewarding. And we shouldn't really we can't let that fear paralyze us. There was a really good book out that said, feel the fear and do it anyway. And that's just good advice. You don't even have to read the book. Just like, okay, you're scared and go do it, go do it anyway. Like, I think that's what they say is courage. So I know for one, I'm an overthinker and a overanalyzer and a procrastinator. So I know those things are really common actually, but they hold us back. We analysis paralysis, and then we just don't do anything. So you just don't want to miss out on the opportunity to tell your story, to establish yourself, to get some consistent content. And, once again, you have that story that only your life can touch other people's lives. And if you don't do it, who will? All of us has a really unique and valuable story to tell. I really believe that. So some tips to do it anyway. Everything comes down to mindset. I've just figured that out. I didn't just figure that out, but you really can't get around it. Whether it's your wellness or I'm a wellness enthusiast, so we'll just use that. But, if you don't, so much of it is how you see yourself, because our actions and our habits align with how we see ourselves. So we really have to work on this. I know that I do. And focus on the journey, right? Like we always think like, oh, when I get to the top of the mountain, but it's like, what about all the fun times you had while you were climbing the mountain, right? I mean, just think about, the road trip that you went somewhere, and it's like half the time, the hilarious stories of the road trip that's some of the best times, when people aren't, like 100% or they're tired, or you just get to have like little conversations that you wouldn't have had. So just really thinking about, again, your uniqueness, your perspective. No one else can say it just like you say it. And, start small. I just want to encourage you that the first time that you create a podcast or whatever, you don't have to post it. I mean, first of all, you probably want to see how everything works, want to get the bells and whistles going, want to make sure the audio is on point. Actually, this is my second time recording this because somehow I didn't have audio. And these are the things that you learn. Or you just like overskip it and you do it again. So just don't overthink it. You have to start. There's brilliance in starting. Just really, it's a conversation. That's one of the beautiful things about podcasting, I think, is that it's very much an authentic conversation. It's really like the knowledge that you already have. That's not to say that there, aren't podcasts where they're, you know, uh, reading from medical journals or whatever. I don't know if people are doing that, but really my point is just that it has a very authentic flavor. Your people are just kind of talking off the cuff, and it's a lot of people like that style. I like that style so that, I can be washing dishes or walking the dog and still be feeling like I'm having an authentic conversation while I'm learning via a podcast. So I would just ask for you to let me know in the comments, what is the most fearful thing that you can think of about starting a podcast? I would love to hear it, whether you're going to let it hold you back or not, or maybe it's just not the right time. But let me know in the comments. That would be some good engagement for me. I'd love to hear from you. And I want to encourage you to start your own podcast. I mean, you have all the resources that you need. You can grab some helpful tips and downloads at my website, jenknoedl.com/power. No, podcast power. So say it 3 times for myself too. And again, if you'd like help launching your podcast, you just want a done for you podcast where all you have to do is think about what you're going to say when you get on there. You don't have to think about all the connections and all that jazz. Definitely shoot me an email like I mentioned before. And that is it for this episode, audio and all. So please like, subscribe, rate this podcast. It really helps so much. Thanks again for tuning in. And I will see you next time on Podcast Power.